a good day to you all, and welcome to the Breakfast Club right here on Asake. My name is Fungai Mawada. The government of Zimbabwe has tabled a number of amendments as well as acts before Parliament which could be put into law. And to help us break down and to understand more about these laws, I am joined by lawyer Thamsanqa Sephuma to just break down the Electoral Amendment Act as well as the Patriotic Bill and its implications for the different citizens of Zimbabwe. Good day, Thamsanqa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so maybe to start off, please explain to us what the Electoral Amendment Act is or the bill and what its implications are for everyday citizens in Zimbabwe.
Basically, this it's a bill, by the way. It's not yet an act, and what the government is trying to do, or in terms of, according to the memorandum to the bill, what they are saying is they are trying to bring the Electoral Act into alignment with the Constitution. So that is why they've introduced this bill. It was gazetted on 18 November 2022. Basically, it's important for us as citizens to be aware of what this bill is talking about and its implications on the upcoming elections, since you know that Zimbabwe has got a history of disputed elections since time immemorial. So we now need to know what it is that the government is trying to do. If you know that our Constitution and Section 67 provides us with political rights, the right to vote, the right to seek public office, the right to participate in political activities, and all these things. The regulating act is the Electoral Act. So therefore, for people who want to be voted for, people who want to vote, and people who want to participate in election rallies, campaigning, and whatsoever, you need to be conversant with the changes that are coming up. You notice that in terms of this bill, what they're trying to do now is to say amend Section 4 of the Electoral Act with respect to the documents that are acceptable as identification. And they are saying they are removing the driver's license. If in the current Electoral Act, it's one of the documents that you can produce to identify yourself in a polling station and whatnot. So now they're saying they are removing that. And the reason they are giving is that the driver's license doesn't show your citizen status. Therefore, the right to vote is a right available to citizens. So that's why they want to remove it, so that you are only able to produce your passport and your ID, which show your citizen status and which obviously entitle you to vote. Right. Also, another important feature that they are trying to introduce with this amendment is in terms of the Constitution, Section 129, they are disqualifying acts or criteria for sitting MPs.
Okay.
Right. Those acts involve issues of dishonesty. If you are convicted for a crime involving dishonesty, involving physical violence, involving breach of trust, if you are a sitting MP, you lose your seat if you are convicted of a crime involving any of those elements. Now, what they are saying is they want to introduce that to candidates as well, to say if you are a candidate, you wish to stand for a seat, but you have been convicted within the past 12 months of a crime involving those elements, dishonesty, trust, breach of trust, and physical violence, then you are also disqualified for standing as a candidate. That's one of the issues that the amendment is trying to bring in. And also another important point that the amendment is also trying to bring into the Electoral Act is the issue of withdrawal of candidates. To say currently, in terms of section 107, of the Electoral Act, only the presidential candidate is the one which is given like a time limit when you can withdraw. Other candidates are able to withdraw any other time. Like currently, it's 21 days before the polling date for the presidential candidate. So now what they are saying is they are trying to also introduce that to other candidates to say if you are standing for any election or any position, if you decide that you no longer want to participate, you can only do so within 21 days from polling day. Those are some of the key amendments. And another one for the feminists, they are extending. If you remember when this constitution was passed in 2013, they introduced this
Women's quota.
So now what they are saying is it was supposed to expire with the expiry of this parliament. So now what they are saying is they want to extend it further so that women's quota remains there. And not only that, they are also introducing the youth quota as well. So those are the, basically I can say, key issues that this amendment seeks to do that I think are of interest to the citizens and the political participants.
Yeah, very interesting points. And I just like to focus a bit on the whole quota system in terms of the youth as well as the women's quota. I read an article somewhere, I think it was the Zimbabwe Electoral Support Network that is listening. They were talking about how this whole quota system is burdensome somehow to taxpayers. Is that so in your view?
Personally, I think it is, because you are looking at increasing the number of people who will be drawing from the fiscus, because those people, they'll get in there, they get cars, they sleep in hotels, they get sitting allowances, salaries, and all that. So it's an added cost on the fiscus, the taxpayer, you and me. But now, when you maybe want to correspond it with actual development on the ground, you might have a hard time seeing the results. Because like if you look at it, since 1980, in terms of parliamentary representation, the number has been going up. Yeah, they've been increasing, going up. But if you look at development on the ground, I'm personally, I can't really say we have seen the dividends of more MPs or anything like that. So at the end of the day, I really think it is a burden to the fiscus. Though some people argue on women's representation, of which to me I think it's a wrong way of doing it. Rather, maybe say for every political party, they try and say maybe have a minimum number of candidates, to say you should have at least maybe say 50% of your candidates as women. Then that way you've included the women, because within that same number, instead of increasing the number, you just say out of 210 MPs, half of that should be women, or 30% or 40% of that should be women. I think it's a better approach than increasing the number. And the worst part is those people, they don't even have constituencies, specific constituencies that they represent. They are just there in parliament.
As a quota, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And then, of course, there's this whole law in terms of the MP. You're talking about how if they breach, if they're dishonest, and if they breach trust, and if they've involved in any form of violence. Do you feel that this is a positive move, rather, in your own opinion?
Is very much so. I think it is, because what you are saying is we need people, our leaders, to be people of integrity, high standards. So also, given the history of political violence in this country, you don't want violent people going to parliament, you know. You want people of somber senses, you know, people of proper standards getting into parliament, not hooligans and such people. So I think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, very interesting. And then we move on to the Patriot Bill, of course, which was a motion which was forwarded. That was way back then in August of 2020. And the fundamental reason that they said behind the bill's proposal is to promote and to guard the country's national interests through criminalizing acts that campaign against Zimbabwe, including but not limited to private correspondence with foreign governments or any officer or agent thereof, false statements influencing foreign governments, or any other such conduct aimed at undermining the integrity of the country. Could you explain in detail what this means for a citizen in Zimbabwe, this patriotic bill?
For now, we are just going with what they said because they haven't even gazetted this bill, by the way. So what they are trying to say is they want to regulate how we as citizens conduct ourselves when we are in foreign countries and whom we talk to, in terms of foreign officials and such things. So they are saying there are people who have gone on and engaged officials of other countries, called for sanctions and harmed Zimbabwe's interest, according to what they're saying, harmed Zimbabwe's interest in terms of attracting investments, tourists, and whatsoever. So now they are trying to say, let no citizen have that right to talk to foreign officials. Let it be only the preserve of the government. That is what they are trying to say, and they were suggesting that there will be severe penalties that will attach to people who break this rule that they are trying to create. And basically they are trying to limit what you can say and not say when you meet a foreign dignitary, even yourself. Yeah, that's what basically they're trying to do.
All right. So, as a lawyer, and let's just say me as an ordinary citizen, and let's say I'm expressing myself on social media, and some people are talking about it on social media in terms when they're talking about how they could pass the patriotic bill, because obviously there's been a lot of pullback. There've been instances where I remember Steve Harvey, for instance, he tweeted about being in Zimbabwe and how glorious and wonderful Victoria Falls was, and people were like, "How dare you say that? Zimbabwe is horrible. We're suffering. There's no fuel and the likes." And a lot of people were like, "But no, Victoria Falls is beautiful at the end of the day." But there's a lot of pullback and in between people. Do you feel this bill, if enacted into law, infringes in some way or another in terms of people's rights? I'm asking you now as a lawyer about your personal opinion in terms of the patriotic bill.
Well, depending on how it will be phrased, it might infringe on freedom of expression, because you see, when people express themselves on matters that affect their daily lives, they'll obviously express in terms of how they are experiencing it. So now, if you then say, as the government, come in and say, no, you can't say that, or you shouldn't say that, it's like you are gagging those people not to be able to speak. If for example, I have 3-4 days without water, I'll obviously not be happy. And if someone can ask me how things are in Zim, I'll obviously vent because I've had 3-4 days without water. So for then the government to then say, no, you can't say that, it's unpatriotic. To me, I don't know how it will work. Maybe we can wait and see how they are going to draft it, the bill, and maybe eventually the act. But for now, the way that they are saying it, I don't think it will work, because you can only express what you feel, what you experience, not what someone tells you to experience or to feel. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And then one last question. I know this is not on our, that we've spoken about, but I was just thinking as you were talking, and I'm interested, Uti, how do we as citizens actively participate in how can I say, in constructing rather bills that also, where we feel we're also participating in these things, and like feeling as though we're being spoon fed these new bills and acts and the likes. How do we as citizens actively work in that area? Because I saw a number of people on social media, they're like, we didn't even know about this. Where did this come from? Another instance with the PVO bill as well. A lot of people are against it, some are for it, and the like. So, how do we as citizens also actively participate in these makings of laws and bills as well to make sure that our voices are heard at the end of the day?
Okay, now, yeah, I hear the question. Now, the challenge that we have is in terms of our lawmaking process, it's how bills are made or originated. Primarily, bills are decided upon by the cabinet. So it is the cabinet which decides what is important at any given time, what should be legislated upon, or what should be reviewed, amended, and things like that. Um, there is no like platform that I can say whereby as citizens we can say we want this law or we don't want this one. Maybe through lobbying, through your MPs, to say they can go and raise those issues in Parliament. However, the problem that we have in terms of our constitution is that it then empowers the political party to discipline. I'm sure you've heard that in Parliament there are chief whips.
Yes.
Yes, those people they're supposed to make sure that the MPs of a particular party are in line with what the party wants or what it thinks is a priority. So now, if you as an MP are being seen as wayward, the Constitution in Section 29, subsection 1K, then allows that party to chuck you out of Parliament or council or whatever. So it sort of becomes a gag because you are not free to express yourself. I'm sure you've seen in Parliament, it is people like Tembamlish or independent candidates who can actually stand up and say whatever they want
yes.
because they know no one is going to chuck them out. So that's the big challenge. So maybe if the constitution could be reviewed so that MPs are given a little bit of leg room, leeway to be able to express the views that they get from their constituents and even their own personal views, even though those views might not be in line with their party policies and whatsoever. But at least that way, I think we'll have a more vibrant democracy where the citizens are able to express themselves in a more meaningful way. But currently, as it is the government which is taking a lead in terms of which laws to make, which laws to amend, and things like that, because laws largely originate in the cabinet.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much, as usual, Thamsanqa Sephuma, for coming through and, opening our eyes and just breaking down some of these bills and laws and enactments and how they could affect us as citizens. So we thank you so much for coming through to the Breakfast Club.
Yeah, welcome.
All right. And to you at home, thank you so much for joining us once again on the Breakfast Club. I hope that you've been enlightened in one way or another, and I encourage you to continue to read and to follow some of these topical issues in our different circles and to talk about it as well because they affect us all on a day-to-day basis. Nonetheless, don't forget to like and to follow us on all social media platforms, our site ZW on Instagram, Facebook, as well as on Twitter and TikTok. From myself, Fungai, and the team behind the scenes, goodbye.